species disappeared forever. Imagine opening your eyes on a morning about 40,000 years ago. Not in a city, not in a house, but in a world where every dawn is the question. Will you still be alive when night falls? Cold mist covers the grassland. Fresh footprints are pressed into the damp earth. In the distance, a low growl of a predator echoes through the forest. You tighten your grip on a stone-tipped spear, take a deep breath, and keep moving. But then, you suddenly see them. Another group of people. They know how to make fire too. They know how to hunt too. They also hold their children close when the air turns cold. They also feel pain when they lose someone they love. And they also look up at the star-filled sky with questions no one can answer. If you were only watching from afar, perhaps you would think they were your own kind, but they are not us. They are another species of human. That is the most unbelievable thing about human history. For almost the entire journey of human evolution, Homo sapiens were never alone. We once shared Earth with the Neanderthals on the cold plains of Europe, the Denisovans among the mountains and forests of Asia, the small-bodied Homo floresiensis on the island of Flores, and many other human branches that science is only beginning to identify through a few fragments of bone, a single tooth, or ancient strands of DNA still sleeping beneath the earth. In other words, there was once a time when the world did not have only one human species. It had an entirely human family. And yet, if you look around the world today, you will realize a truth that is both simple and terrifying. Only we remain. Dozens of human branches that existed for hundreds of thousands of years have vanished from history, leaving behind abandoned caves, buried stone tools, and secrets that scientists are still trying to decode even today. What erased almost our entire family? Were our ancestors stronger, smarter, or more ruthless? Were they defeated in wars no one remembers? Did the icy climate drive them to extinction? Or did disease, hunger, and environmental upheavals quietly remove their names from history? Or perhaps all of those explanations tell only part of the story, because the most astonishing discovery of the 21st century reveals a truth no one expected. Those human species may have never truly disappeared. A part of them is still alive, in our blood, in our brains, and perhaps in the very way we think, feel, and exist as human beings. In this video, we will follow the remaining traces from archaeology, ancient genetics, anthropology, and cognitive science to discover what truly happened to our evolutionary relatives. This is not only a story about the extinction of other human species. This is a story of why, among countless branches that once walked the earth together, only one branch remains here today, able to ask questions about all the others. If you could travel back in time about 100,000 of years ago and observe Earth from above, perhaps the thing that would astonish you the most would not be the mammoths, the herds of bison, or the glaciers spreading across the north. It would be the humans, not one kind of human, many. Today, when we say human, we usually mean Homo sapiens. But for most of evolutionary history, that was not the normal condition. The human story was never a single straight road. It was a branching tree, splitting again and again into different forms of intelligence, survival, adaptation, and culture. In Western Eurasia, the Neanderthals endured cold climates for hundreds of thousands of years. Their bodies were short, powerful, and muscular, built to conserve heat in icy landscapes. They hunted large animals, made sophisticated tools, used fires, and cared for injured or elderly members of their groups. Some skeletons showed serious injuries that healed over time, suggesting that survival was not only a matter of strength but also community. Farther east, in Siberia and across parts of Asia, lived the Denisovans, a human branch known at first from only a finger bone and a few teeth. Yet ancient DNA revealed that these fragments belonged to a distinct lineage, one important enough to rewrite the map of human evolution. And then there were the island humans. On Flores, in Indonesia, Homo floresiensis survived with a body only about 1 meter tall and a brain far smaller than ours. Yet they made stone tools and adapted to an isolated island world for tens of thousands of years. In the Philippines, Homo luzonensis revealed another unexpected branch, with a strange mixture of modern and ancient traits. Each discovery tells us the same thing. Human evolution was not a ladder, it was a forest. Many branches, many experiments, many ways of becoming human. And Homo sapiens were not guaranteed to be the final survivor. We were only one branch among many, living in a world already occupied by other humans who knew their lands, their prey, their seasons, and their dangers. So when our ancestors began leaving Africa and spreading into the Middle East, Europe, and Asia, they were not entering an empty world. They were entering someone else's home. This is where the great mystery begins. If Homo sapiens were latecomers, why did they remain? For a long time, the answer seemed obvious, intelligence, but the evidence is far more complicated. Neanderthals were not the brutish, primitive figures once imagined. Their brains were large, the tools were refined. They attached stone blades to wooden handles, hunted dangerous prey, used fire, and may have buried their dead. They were capable, resilient, and deeply adapted to their world. So perhaps the difference was not simply who was smarter. Perhaps it was who could connect better. Homo sapiens seem to have built wider social networks. Instead of depending only on one local group, they could exchange materials, food, techniques, and information across long distance. A tool stolen from far away, a new hunting method, a remembered route through unfamiliar land, each small connection could become a survival advantage. Imagine two groups facing the same hard winter. One group survives only on what it already knows. The other can draw from knowledge carried across valleys, rivers, and distant camps. At first, the difference may seem small, but across thousands of years, small advantages become decisive. The strength of Homo sapiens may not have lived only inside the individual minds. It may have lived between minds. In the invisible web of cooperation, memory, exchange, and shared knowledge. But then, ancient DNA reveals something even more surprising. Homo sapiens did not only compete with other human species. They met them, they lived near them, and sometimes they had children with them. For much of the 20th century, the story seemed simple. Modern humans arrived, other humans disappeared. One species replaced another. But when scientists began sequencing ancient genomes, that clean story collapsed. People of non-African ancestry today carry about 1 or 2% Neanderthal DNA. Many populations in Melanesia, Papua New Guinea, and parts of Asia carry Denisovan DNA as well. These traces could only exist if our ancestors interbred with other human species often enough for those genes to survive into the present. Suddenly, the boundary between us and them became blurred. The disappearance of other humans was not a clean extinction. It was also absorption, encounter, mixture, family. One of the most moving discoveries came from the Denisova cave. Scientists identified the remains of a young girl who lived about 90,000 years ago. Her mother was Neanderthal, her father was Denisovan. Behind that genetic fact is something profoundly human. Two individuals from different human branches met. Perhaps they shared a fire. Perhaps they traveled together. Perhaps they raised a child in a world where the borders between species were not as rigid as we once imagined. And some of those ancient inheritances still matter. Certain Neanderthal variants are linked to immune responses, possibly helping Homo sapiens adapt to new pathogens outside Africa. Some Denisovan variants may have helped populations such as Tibetans survive a high-altitude environment with low oxygen. So the other humans did not vanish completely. They became part of us, but that raises an even deeper question. If they could meet us, mate with us, and leave descendants within us, why did their separate populations disappear? The answer cannot be only war. It cannot be only competition. Something larger was happening. The planet itself was changing. Imagine waking up one morning. You still live in the same cave. You still follow the same hunting trail your parents once walked. The mountains remain. The rivers still flow. Nothing seems different, but the most dangerous force in nature rarely arrives overnight. It changes quietly. The reindeer begin arriving later each year. Open grasslands slowly give way to dense forest. Streams shrink during the summer. Winters grow longer. The familiar plants your community once depended on become increasingly scarce. No single change is dramatic enough to cause panic, but generation after generation, those small changes reshape an entire ecosystem. This was the reality ancient humans faced. Throughout the Ice Age, Earth repeatedly shifted between colder and warmer climates. Glaciers advanced and retreated. Sea levels rose and fell. Forests became grasslands, and grasslands eventually returned to forest. These were not simply changes in weather, they transformed landscapes on which every human community depended. When the environment changed, animal migrations changed. When the prey disappeared, hunters traveled farther. When rivers shifted, entire communities abandoned territories their ancestors had occupied for thousands of years. Not every human species responded in the same way. Neanderthals, for example, were extraordinarily successful in Ice Age Europe. Their powerful physics conserved heat efficiently, and they became highly skilled hunters of large mammals. Yet specialization can become a weakness when the environment changes. If large game becomes scarce, hunting strategies must change. If forests replace open plains, generations of accumulated knowledge lose much of their value. Many archaeological discoveries suggest that Homo sapiens relied on a broader range of resources. Alongside large mammals, they hunted smaller animals, gathered diverse plants, collected shellfish, and caught fish whenever local environments allowed. They were not necessarily stronger, they were more adaptable, and in evolution, adaptability often matters more than dominance. The species that survives is rarely the largest or the strongest. It is often the one most willing or most able to change. Scientists continue to debate the precise impact of events, such as the Toba supervolcanic eruption and the population bottlenecks reflected in our genetic history. But there is a broad agreement on one point. No human species evolved in a stable world. Every generation faced new environmental challenges, and nature kept asking the same question. How quickly can you adapt? Still, climate alone cannot explain everything. If environmental change were the only cause, then every human lineage should have vanished together. Instead, several survived for thousands of years in remarkably different environments. Some even evolved in almost complete isolation. Those isolated worlds would reveal one of evolution's greatest surprises. Modern people often imagine evolution as a straight path toward becoming larger, smarter, and more advanced. Nature has never worked that way. Sometimes survival favors become smaller. Sometimes rewards become different. On the Indonesian island of Flores, surrounded by ocean for hundreds of thousands of years, evolution followed an unexpected direction. Of Homo floresiensis, barely 1 meter tall, with the big. There, archaeologists uncovered the remains of Homo floresiensis, barely 1 meter tall, with a brain much smaller than ours. They nevertheless crafted stone tools, hunted effectively, and survived for tens of thousands of years in complete isolation. When the fossils were first announced, many researchers suspected they belonged to a modern human with a developmental disorder. Further study revealed something far more remarkable. They represent an entirely separate human species. Their existence challenged one of our oldest assumptions. A larger brain does not automatically guarantee greater evolutionary success. In certain environments, conserving energy, adapting to limited resources, and developing specialized survival strategies may offer greater advantage. Flores was not unique. In Calao Cave in the Philippines, researchers later uncovered Homo luzonensis, another distinct human lineage combining surprisingly ancient and modern anatomical features. Together, these discoveries carry an important message. Human evolution was never moving toward a single destination. It was constantly experimenting. Each branch represented another possible version of humanity. None of these species were failures. They survived their own environments for tens or even hundreds of thousands of years. Had history unfolded differently, they might still exist today. Which brings us back into the central mystery. If body size was not decisive, if brain size was not decisive, if surviving harsh climates was not decisive, then what truly separated Homo sapiens from every other human lineage? More and more anthropologists believe the answer cannot be found in bones. It lies in something invisible. A new way of thinking, a new way of communicating, and a new way of connecting many individual minds into one shared intelligence. Perhaps the greatest revolution in human history was not a better species. Imagine two hunting parties preparing to pursue a mammoth. The first exchanges simple information. There are fresh tracks. We attack together. Already, this is an impressive communication. Now imagine the second group discussing something entirely different. We divide into 3 teams. If the mammoth reaches the river, we force it toward the rocks. If this hunt fails, the tribe may not survive the winter. These people are no longer describing only what exists. They are planning for possibility. Think about futures that have not yet happened. Constructing ideas that exist only inside the mouth. The ability changes everything. Many researchers believe Homo sapiens developed a greater capacity for abstract language, not simply to exchange information but to coordinate complex plans, preserve knowledge, and for abstract language. Not simply to exchange information but to coordinate complex plans, preserve knowledge, establish social rules, and create shared belief. Food alone does not hold a society together, shared meaning does. They believe that everyone belongs to the same community. They believe that ancestors continue watching over the living. They believe that the group will protect every member when danger appears. Yet these ideas cannot be touched. Yet you need hundreds of strangers into a single society. The archaeological record seems to reflect this transformation. Around 40,000 years ago, symbolic behavior expanded dramatically. Humans painted cave walls with animals and mysterious figures. They carved ivory sculptures, created ornaments from shells carried hundreds of kilometers inland, used pigments during ceremonies or to decorate the body. None of these objects directly improved hunting. None produced more food, yet they strengthened something equally important: identity, memory, belonging. A necklace could identify one's community. A painting could preserve shared stories. A ritual could reinforce trust during difficult times. One's knowledge could pass reliably from generation to generation. It no longer disappeared whenever an individual died. Ideas accumulated. Techniques improved. Mistakes were remembered. Each generation began slightly farther ahead than the before. That is cumulative culture. Perhaps it became Homo sapiens' greatest evolutionary advantage. We did not evolve only through biology. We evolved through knowledge. Not only through gens, but through everything we learned together. This does not mean Neanderthals lacked symbolism or culture. Evidence increasingly suggests they also used pigments, wore ornaments, and may have practiced symbolic rituals. The difference, if one existed, was probably not whether these behaviors appeared. It was how widely they spread. An idea changes history only when it moves beyond one individual, beyond one family, beyond one tribe. Until thousands of people who have never met can still believe it's the same story. That may have been the turning point. Not that Homo sapiens became physically superior, but that separate human minds became connected into one vast collective intelligence. If you watch the prehistoric movie, the ending often looks the same. Two groups of humans confront one another. Spears are raised, a battle begins. One side survives, the other disappears. It is a powerful story, but the real story is almost certainly more complicated. One of the biggest questions in modern anthropology remains this: did Homo sapiens directly cause the extinction of the other human species? The honest answer is, we still do not know. Competition almost certainly existed. Different human groups hunted many of the same animals, searched for the same freshwater sources, and occupied landscapes whose resources became increasingly unpredictable as climates shifted. But competition does not always mean conflict. Sometimes it happens quietly. A population that adapts more quickly expands into new territory. Another slowly retreats into less favorable environments. Generation after generation, one community grows while another becomes smaller and more isolated. No decisive battle, no dramatic victory, only a gradual change that eventually becomes irreversible. Disease may also have played a role. History repeatedly shows what can happen when isolated populations encounter unfamiliar pathogens. Even illnesses that produce only mild effects in one population can devastate another that has never developed resistance. Whether something similar happened between Homo sapiens and other human species remains uncertain. There is currently no direct evidence, but neither can the possibility be dismissed. Population size may have been even more important. Genetic studies suggest that many Neanderthal communities were relatively small and often isolated from one another. Small populations are fragile. One severe winter, one prolonged food shortage, one generation with fewer surviving children, one community unable to find unrelated partners. Each setback seems minor by itself. Together over centuries, they become overwhelming. Extinction does not always happen through violence. Sometimes the population simply fails to replace itself, year after year, generation after generation, until one day it is gone. Seen this way, Homo sapiens do not necessarily become the villains of the story. They may have been competition. They may have been occasionally conflict. Pathogens may have spread unintentionally. Expanding populations may have claimed the most productive landscapes, but they also exchange genes, shared knowledge, and perhaps even shared stories around the fire. History is rarely driven by a single cause. It emerged from countless forces acting together: climate, geography, population size, genetics, culture, disease, innovation, cooperation. None of them alone fully explains why only one human species survived. Together, however, they begin to reveal a far more convincing picture, like small streams joining into one powerful river. After more than a century of archaeological discoveries, genetic research, and anthropological investigation, perhaps the greatest lesson is not that science has finally solved this mystery. It is that the mystery itself has become more complex. Although human species did not disappear because of one catastrophic event, their fate was probably shaped by the intersection of many different forces operating across thousands of years. A changing climate, shrinking populations, competition for resources, occasional interbreeding, cultural innovation, expanding cooperation. Each influence alone may have been insufficient. Combined, they slowly shifted the balance of evolution until only one branch remained. Yet even that conclusion contains an extraordinary irony. Although nearly every other human lineage disappeared as separate populations, none of them vanished completely. They survive in our DNA, in the adaptations they pass to us, and in every new fossil, genome, and archaeological discovery that continues to reshape our understanding of what it means to be human. Perhaps Homo sapiens were never destined to become the final survivors. Perhaps we were simply the branch that adapted the most successfully to an unpredictable world. And that realization changes the entire story. Instead of asking why the others failed, we begin asking how fragile our own success may truly be. Evolution has never promised permanence. Every species that has ever existed believed, in its own moment, that it belonged to the future. Most did not. Our ancestors survived because countless favorable circumstances aligned over thousands of generations. Their story was not one of inevitable victory. It was one of resilience, flexibility, cooperation, and chance. And perhaps that is the most humbling lesson archaeology can offer. The human family was once vast. Today, only one branch remains. Not because history was simple, but because it was unimaginably complex. And that complexity is still being uncovered with every fossil on Earth, every genome decoded, and every new question we dare to ask. Remember the first moment of this story. You are standing in forest tens of thousands of years ago, looking toward another group of people gathered around a fire. At that moment, neither you nor they could know what would happen over the next tens of millennia. No one knew that almost the human branches that once shared Earth would gradually disappear. And surely no one knew that only Homo sapiens would survive until today. But perhaps the most important thing in history leaves behind is not that we were stronger than all the human species, nor that we were smarter, but that in a world that was always changing, we adapted better to the circumstances we faced. And yet the Neanderthals, Denisovans, and other human branches were not field chapters of the history. They too once loved, raised children, cared for the elderly, hunted together, sat beside firelight, and looked up at the night sky with questions that may not have been so different from ours today. They are not merely fossils lying in museums. They are part of the human family. And in a very real sense, they are still living inside us through strands of DNA passed from generations to generation, and through the evolutionary journey that helped create modern humans. Perhaps the greatest question is no longer, why did other human species disappear? But rather, if the two once believed they would exist forever, what makes us believe the story of Homo sapiens will be different? Evolutionary history has never stopped, and the final chapter of that story perhaps is still being written by us day by day. If you found this journey of discovery interesting, let me know your thoughts in the comments. In your opinion, what was the most important factor that caused all the human species to gradually disappear? Climate change, competition, the cooperative ability of Homo sapiens, or all of those things happening together? I would truly love to read your perspective and discuss it with you in the comments below. If you enjoyed storytelling documentaries about history, anthropology, and human evolution, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next video. And if today's story made you wonder what created a special relationship between humans and the rest of the natural world, the next video will take us to an entirely different perspective. What animals really think about humans? Do animals truly see us as predators, as friends, or simply as another strange creature in nature? from wolves, elephants, and dolphins to crows, chimpanzees, and even large predators. We will explore what science knows about how animals perceive, remember, and react to humans. Thank you for joining me on today's journey, and I'll see you again in the next video.